So when you've got comfortable in your lying down position, either with your knees bent or your legs straight, you can take a moment to do that. And if you're following this on video, you can always pause for a moment until you've got yourself together and then press play again. And once you've got comfortable, I'd like you to explore your connection with the ground. In the classes last week, we looked a lot at our relationship with gravity and the earth. Vitamin G, as it's sometimes called, because the earth can be restorative for us, giving in to gravity, letting go towards the earth. Can be very restorative. So if you've got low sort of energy levels, 5 or less, that might be very welcome. And sometimes we might have some assumptions. They could be quite implicit in our mind that we should be energetic in the morning, we should do energetic things. And that the morning is kind of a strange time to do relaxation practice. It's actually quite common in yoga to have morning relaxation practices. If we're still tired because we haven't slept enough, or we're not well, or we're just experiencing fatigue for whatever reason, it can be restorative any time of day. If it's to help our nervous system to recover from stressful circumstances, it can be helpful any time of the day. There can even be a slightly heightened anxiety in the morning when we first wake up. There's a natural sort of spike in adrenaline and cortisol to get us going. But if we've already got some level of stress, that might actually feel quite uncomfortable in our body. So it can help to settle that, which will then also help you to be more relaxed later in the day and sleep better tonight. And if you're very energetic, you've woken up and you're full of beans, as we say, then you'll be awake and alert to explore what relaxation really feels like. So then it becomes more of an awareness practice, a meditation practice. So how is your relationship physically to the ground right now? In terms of which parts of you are maybe giving in more to gravity, fully utilizing the support of the ground. And which parts of you are perhaps up, and that might be really subtle. Like I was just noticing, I'm sitting, so it's a bit different, but I was just noticing a slight uplift by arching my lower back, which is not necessary right now. So once I'd identified that, I could let it go and sink a bit more into my seat. In lying down, I often experience that around my shoulders and also my lower back. And then you might also experience a resisting to resting mentally. And that might be coming out in having a lot of thoughts, or a kind of forward future anticipation in your mind about things to do or places to go. Not that many places to go right now, but still might be shopping or walking the dog, whatever. So for that, it's also helpful to feel our relationship physically with the ground and to breathe out and see if we can drop into it a little bit more. And then to really relax the front of the body, especially our forehead. Eyes can be closed or softly open. Relaxing our mouth, our tongue, and that helps to relax the jaw. And the belly. And then noticing your hands. How are your hands resting? Doesn't matter what position they're in, but see if they're resting. I can sometimes feel a kind of contentment in my hands when I allow them to rest. Because they're usually quite busy, our hands. And there might be a sense of, oh, my hands have done enough just now, let them be. And this might sound a bit far out or fanciful, but sometimes I have a sense that my body is kind of grateful for me stopping. And sometimes I have a sense that my body wants to jump, dance, run. Not that I'm necessarily very able to do those things, but sometimes my body inside feels like an excited 3-year-old. And sometimes it feels like an absolutely knackered 100-year-old. And sometimes it's a physical thing that's going on, sometimes it's emotional, and it can be hard to know. Noticing where you're at. And when we've stopped and noticed and rested a bit and been aware perhaps of our relationship this morning to stopping and resting, we can see if we want to start moving, and it might just be coaxing first one finger to move, maybe the little finger to move. So often the little fingers are the relatively quiet parts of our hands. Our thumbs and index fingers are the busy part. So you can notice your little fingers and notice how light they are. And move them around a little bit as if you're tickling the air with your little fingers. And then you can let your ring fingers move as well. And it might be tricky to keep the other fingers uninvolved, so let them move with a little bit, that's fine. And then actively let the middle fingers tickle the air, and then the index fingers as well. And then the thumbs. Quite playful and light. And then you can open your hands fully, like really opening out the palms, and then making loose fists a couple of times. And you might want to do this with your breathing. So if you're enjoying usually breathing and moving together, harmonizing that, you could breathe in on opening your hands out and breathe out on making the gentle fist. So inhaling, opening, exhaling, gently closing your fingers around your thumbs and opening. So what is that like this morning? It's like flowers opening in the morning sunlight and then gently closing. So sometimes we've woken up, we've done that opening our eyes, started moving, and then a little later we think, I could easily go back to bed. How is that for you this morning? Are you kind of ready to open up a bit more, or ready to go back to bed? Because you can always choose to stay there for longer on the floor. When we get to the more active parts, you might want to stay close to the ground to nourish yourself in that way. And then seeing if you would like to take one arm up towards the ceiling. And again, open and close your hand a couple of times. And you can bend and straighten your elbow a little bit as well. So you can think about opening up your elbow joint as well as your hand. So straightening your arm and opening the hand. And softening, bending the elbow and making a loose fist. And going to the other side. So a lot of life, nature, cycles of the day and the seasons is about this opening and closing. Flowers, butterflies, our eyes opening and closing, our lungs kind of opening, breathing in, closing, breathing out. There's this sort of pulse of life. So you can then use both arms. We can do the walking the ladder movement. So lying on your back, one hand reaches up and comes down a bit by bending and straightening the elbows, and then the other one, so it's a kind of rhythm, a bit like walking a ladder. And again, you can open and then make a gentle fist as if you're reaching and holding the next rung of the ladder. And here you can make a bit more effort by reaching more, and when you bring your hand down, you could imagine actually pulling yourself up, as if you're climbing up this ladder with the strength of your arms more than your legs. And just bringing in that imagined effort will make your muscles work a little bit harder. You might feel that. If you imagine you've got to pull yourself up, you probably feel more activity in your biceps, your upper arms, and also your fists. Or you can keep it very light. You can keep it very light as if you're swimming through air. And then bringing your arms back down and taking your arms out to the side, spreading your wings as it were. So that's another opening movement. And then noticing whether you've put your palms up or down, either is fine. And then as you breathe out, turning your palms to the ground as you breathe in away from the ground. So rolling your arms over the floor with your hands relaxed. So your palms fairly open. Your fingers might be curled in. Palms fairly open. And then you can give it a bit more of an open, active feel by spreading your fingers a bit more, straightening your fingers a bit more, and very consciously touching the ground when your palms are down. You could press into the ground a tiny bit when you touch the ground with your palms. And then rolling over when the palms are up, more of a just resting feeling. And pressing down and then turning up and resting. So when we press down into the ground, that's where our kind of resistance to gravity, the possibility of coming up, starts to engage. So when you press your palms down onto the ground, you might have that sense of, oh yeah, okay, that makes my shoulders lift up. Something happens in my upper back or my chest. A movement away from the floor that accompanies the pressing down into the floor. So again, little or no effort is fine, or you can make more effort by really opening your hands or pressing down. Awareness of what you're doing with your body and what you choose to put into it. It's the intention to be super restful, restorative. It's the intention to activate. Both absolutely valid. And then when you next turn your palms towards the ceiling, just allowing your arms to rest there for a moment, and bending your knees. If you've had your legs straight, bending your knees and feeling the landscape of your feet on the ground. That's lovely. And then we can do the same with our feet, so we can press down a little bit through both feet and notice there's then a subtle movement up around the pelvis, maybe the lower back. You don't have to lift your pelvis, you could just press down very gently and let go again. Experiencing how this downward direction through the feet invites an upward direction somewhere else. And then if you want to, you can start to press down a bit more and allow your pelvis to lift up and feel the stronger contraction in the buttock muscles. And then you might be taking this into a bridge pose, where we're pressing down through the feet and allowing the spine to roll away from the floor, so that there's space between your back and the floor, parts of your back and the floor. It might be a very low bridge, like one of those traditional low slung bridges over ravines with a big dip in the middle like a hammock. Or it might become more of a wedge shape where there's more of a straight line between your knees and your head. Or even an upward curved bridge if you want to take it into a stronger back bend. So this is again a choice in terms of effort and opening. How much do you want to open the front of your body? How much is comfortable here for your back? How much is okay in terms of effort? Keep checking in with your body and responding with kindness, following a sense of what's feeling pleasurable, what's feeling kind of easy, in the sense of there might be some effort, you might long to make some effort, but gives you a sense of ease. And then when you next roll down, bringing your knees in towards your chest. Noticing how your lower back then kind of hugs the ground a bit more. And you can hold your knees, or you can keep your arms wide, whatever again gives you more ease. And take a small rock from side to side with your knees, so it doesn't have to be big, but it might feel nice to go a bit further. To create a sort of bigger wave. Massaging your lower back. Lovely, and then you might want to hold the backs of your knees and take your feet up towards the ceiling. And you can gently wriggle your toes, circle your ankles. A way to make this easier can be to bend your knees more, depending on how flexible your hamstrings are. It's nice to have a sense of the backs of the knees opening at least a bit. You can also do one leg at a time. Opening the soles of your feet to the sky. Lovely. And then hugging your knees in towards your chest again. And then this is a little more effort, but if you'd like to, you could bring your knees to your chest and your head towards your knees 3 or 4 times on the exhale, and on the inhale come back down. Or you can just move your knees in and leave your head on the floor, so that's the less effortful. And choosing according to how you are and also how your neck is. Curling up and coming back down 3 or 4 times. But sometimes that sort of closing in, there's some effort there as well if we do it against gravity. And then when you bring your head back down after the 3rd or 4th time, you can lower your feet back to the floor and then stretch through your whole body. You can stretch your legs out, point your toes, or stretch through your heels. Stretch your arms up. You might get a natural inclination to yawn or take a deeper breath. Again, a sense of opening out, spreading out, and then coming back to just a few breaths to rest again. Maybe you'd like to spread out like a starfish on the floor, or bend your knees, or place your hands on your belly, whatever feels soothing and restful. Notice your relationship to the ground through your back. And how it's been to either stay a little bit in and closed, curled up, and how it is to spread out and open this morning. Lovely, and then once more bringing your knees in towards your chest. And then going to come to all fours, so exploring a little bit more of this opening and closing. From the cat pose, so it's often quite a nice pose to move around from lying down and being more sort of inward. So we can do our forward bend going a little bit more inward, and then the backward bend going more outward. And if you've got any wrist problems, come to your elbows. Staying with your breathing, and of course again you can make this quite small, this movement, or you can make it bigger. You can do a stronger exhale and really pull your navel back and tuck your tailbone under, and on the backward bend you can lift your head a bit higher, lift your tail a bit higher, or you can keep it very small. We've got that saying, which can be a bit of a cliche, probably less is more, and sometimes that is true, depending on what we need. And sometimes it feels really delicious to make bigger movements. And then we can do a gentle kneeling downward dog. So it's this one where we fold one arm in front of us to rest our forehead on, and then the other arm stretching forwards. So it's quite a gentle kneeling version of downward dog. Hips are above the heels, so they're slightly raised. Just check how everyone's doing with that. Looks great. And then you can do the other side, of course, changing your arms over. Opening up the sides of the body gently. And then if you want to stay practicing gently, you can do the cat a couple more times, alternating with this kneeling version of downward dog, or you can go to our usual downward dog from the cat, tucking the toes under, lifting the knees and bringing the hips up, a bit more energetic. And you can always alternate with child pose as a resting point in between. So something between downward dog, cat and child. So So we're still facing the ground, facing the earth, hands, knees and feet supported by the earth at different points, and sometimes the forehead supported by the earth in child pose as well. So noticing which postures you're preferring this morning. What is your body enjoying? And then for the last minute of working with these poses, choosing which one you'd like to do a bit more of, maybe resting in child or being in downward dog. And then again, if you have a strong sense of wanting to stay in child pose longer, to have a rest, that's absolutely fine. And if you feel like standing up, and we're going to come to standing next. So from standing and working with this opening and closing in a gentle way. More effort if we want to. So standing with our feet roughly hip width apart, and finding ease in standing. So often comes from a slight softness in the knees and a sense of feeling support downwards from the waist down through the bone structures into the heels and the feet, and then a sense of lengthening up with ease through the crown of the head. Shoulders relaxed, arms relaxed. And then on an in-breath, we'll take one arm up and breathing out, going over, breathing in, coming back, breathing out, lowering the arms. So we can then go to the other side. Again, a gentle opening with side bend. Really simple, and this is one that you can very easily do seated on a chair. You can honour these little pauses in the breath, so breathing in, tiny pause, breathing out, and then breathing in, coming halfway back, turning the palm, going back down. So there's a kind of emphasis on up and down. Mute microphones. And the difference between the up, opening, and then coming back down, turning the palm, and these little pauses in the breath. Moments in between the in-breath and the out-breath. The opening and the closing. So I started on my right side, you may have started on your left, mirroring me. You've done a few on each side. a similar movement with both arms. So breathe in past the midline and then breathe out, completing the circle. So it's breathing in, going up and out, and then breathing out, turning the palms and coming back. So you can make this very small, with soft elbows, or you can really go for it and bring in a bit of a back bend, opening the front ribs. And see what feels kind of helpful, gives you a sense of ease, or either a small, not much of a back bend, or really going for it more. Quite a big difference between those two approaches. So the back bend coming in gives us a real sense of opening to the day and also being more energetic, perhaps. So we'll do a couple more if you're up for it. And we can come back to this attentive standing, grounded feet, soft knees, lengthening up, and hopefully feeling a little bit more awake and alive around the ribs. And then we'll take our feet a bit wider, so about mat width apart. And we'll draw circles of 8 with our hands, and we can start again quite small, and we might keep it quite small. And again, this could be a sense of just swimming through air. You could imagine our arms and hands are really light. And we can gradually make these movements a bit bigger if we want to. And if you've ever done the butterfly stroke in swimming, you can go towards that as if you're swimming the butterfly stroke in water. So still not masses of resistance, but imagining a bit more resistance, like you're pulling yourself through the water. And you can start to, if you want to, let your body get a bit more involved, so sideways on. Start to look a bit more like this, like a whole spinal wave. Your knees can get a bit more involved. Or you can keep it small. And then we'll go back to small. Maybe slowing down a bit as well. I realised I was speeding up, so that's another way with these to change effort levels, is slowing down, speeding up. Make smaller, make bigger. And you can see if you can make your stance even a little bit wider. So I'm just going to change my angle. And actually, I meant to say that earlier. It's quite nice to change the height of your device when you're standing up, so you don't have to look down. But see how it is for you if you've got a way of doing that. But it might be something to think about as well when you're attending anything online or working a lot on Zoom in meetings or whatever you're doing, is to sometimes stand up, to have your screen at sort of head, eye level. So taking our feet wider than mat width apart. Still can't see my feet. Let's see if I can move a bit more. So yeah, quite wide feet, and make sure you're in a sort of non-slip place. And then bending your knees. So this is a little energetic, this is horse stance or support pose. And so again, you can make this gentler by straightening your knees more, or just having soft knees in a sort of mat width stance. So see how you are with that. And the knees in the direction of the toes, to keep your knees safe. And then making a gesture with our hands, bringing the tips of the thumbs and the tips of the index fingers together and spreading the fingers. So it's the diamond gesture. And we can sort of hold that in front of the belly. And then we'll bring it up and out in front of us and look through the space between your thumbs and index fingers, through that sort of triangle or diamondy shape. And really push the hands forwards. Again, you can make this softer by bending your elbows. And then taking our arms up and out and looking up, straightening the legs, and then kind of flowing back down. You can do a little flowing movement. And seeing how wide you can comfortably go. And if it's sitting down, if it's too much, just come up, bring your feet close together. And then bringing the hands back to this diamond gesture. And then pushing forwards, like looking through your hands, so a sense of focus, pushing forwards, but from a very stable place. And then letting your gaze open out and soften, straightening your legs, spreading out, opening up. And then coming down, and then kind of flowing back down. So softness. And then pushing forwards. Looking through your hands. This is inspired by Yona's dance class. Judith might recognise bits of this. And then opening out, really opening out our gaze to the day, to the week. Down, flow, back down to this support pose. Feeling the strength and stability in that, and that might be very useful in our week. The focus and pushing forward of this might be useful in our week somehow. Also noticing the effort in that. And then opening out the bigger picture, spreading out, taking up space might be useful in some way in our week. And then letting it go a bit, going with the flow. That might also be something useful in our week. And then we'll do a letting go forward bend. So you can do a wide-legged one if that's comfortable. You can just turn your feet forwards a little bit, bend your knees more, and go down from there. If that's not so comfy, you can bring your feet a bit close together. Just do a half forward bend. Be aware of any back issues. And in that pose, very helpful to fully let go of your head. Letting the crown release down. Is there anything you want to let go of at the start of this week? coming back up to standing with the feet underneath the hips. Sense of standing tall. And this is more neutral. So sometimes we've perhaps got this sense of really wanting to open up, move forwards, push, focus, all of these different little elements that were in that sequence. And sometimes we might feel, oh no, I need to just settle back, rest, lie down. So we can go into self-care pose, which is the hugging gesture. You can take your head to one of your shoulders, a little bit of a sense of letting go of the head. So what is kind for you towards yourself this week? And then we can cross our arms the other way and take our head the other way, which might feel a bit less natural. Letting your arms go, giving a little bit of a shake. Excellent. So we're often somewhere on this spectrum of energy levels, of course, from being full of energy or not having very much. And we might also be on this spectrum of being, yeah, we're great, it's a new week, to, oh my God, it's Monday. So where we are mentally, physically, is going to have a big effect on, whether we just want to sort of curl up, lie on the floor with our knees in towards our chest, or go into relaxation, or do some energetic activity. And sometimes we can choose to shift our state a bit with that. So when we actually do some of these movements, we might start to feel a bit more energized. We might start to wake up, similar to having some caffeine, but maybe a bit healthier. So we'll do one more pose around that, but again, it can be feeling a bit, if it feels a bit jarring, then make it smaller, or you can already begin to settle for relaxation if you have that sense of, no, by now I've had enough. So this one is called Enthusiasm Warrior, or you might have heard it called Open-Hearted Warrior. Can't see my head again. Change that. So we can start with the hands on our heart and reflecting for a moment what we would like to be enthusiastic about this week. So it might be being enthusiastic about resting, and you might have a project on the go, or something you'd like to start but haven't quite got around to for whatever reason. It might be a lack of energy or enthusiasm, might have been a lack of time. This is a way of saying and embodying yes to something. If you've got something you want to do, it could be very small, like I've still got these two cuttings of plants that need planting. They're in water and their roots are growing quite happily, but I'd like to pot them. So it could be something really small like that, or it could be a bigger project. And then we're going to step forwards and slightly lift up and throw our arms back and come back. So sideways on. I want you to be able to see my feet as well, at least to demonstrate. So here, sideways on, it's stepping forwards. The back heel can come slightly up and then stepping back. Forwards and back. And I just lost my balance a bit, and that might happen for you as well, and that's okay. So it's a little bit less grounded, it's a bit more up, it's got that slight bounce to it. Moving away from the ground, forwards and up. Noticing what that's like, that perhaps a sense of enthusiasm. Yes! You can even say yes if you want to. If your first language is not English, you can say it in your first language. That can be more powerful sometimes. For me, that's ja in Dutch. And then when you come back, now this time, you can keep your hands on your heart for a moment. Maybe you can feel your heartbeat or your breath there. And releasing your arms. And notice again whether you feel a bit more enthused, vibrant, revitalized, or whether this has kind of made you feel a bit more tired, so there might be again a clue there as to what you need. And then we'll come to resting again, guided relaxation. So once more, take a moment to prepare what you need for that. So we can relax in any posture really. We can also relax more in standing. In some ways, yoga is about kind of learning to be as effortless as we can in whatever we do. And for most of us, it's easiest to recognize that in the extreme, so the contrast between an energetic pose like plank or the poses we've just finished with, and then completely stopping, resting, lying down. And we can really recognize more easily where effort is in the body and where relaxation is in the body, how we do it, or how we undo it, as it were. How do we undo the effort that's not necessary? And then over time we can work with that in a more subtle way in postures like mountain pose. So our practice becomes generally increasingly about subtle awareness of everything we do with our body and mind, and how we can choose to do it differently. So as you stop now, again, pause and rest, letting your awareness move around your body. And to see again if there's anywhere where you could rest into the ground a bit more. If you're sitting, that will be through your sitting bones, through your hips, maybe your back against the chair or whatever you're leaning against. And if you're lying, it's all the different parts of your body that are resting on the ground. And once again, the out breath can be an invitation to let go a bit more into the supports that you have. To imagine gravity is like a cloak of relaxation. And as you exhale, you're going to settle into the weight of that. Maybe you have an actual blanket on you, which is helping gravity to kind of hug you close to the earth. And the in-breath can be an invitation to soften, to open, to allow the in-breath to come in. And then allow the out-breath to go out. Going with the flow of your breathing. Just staying with that gentle allowing in-breath, out-breath. Letting go, letting gravity support your relaxation. Breathing in, letting soft opening, inhaling, support your relaxation too. There's an element of relaxation and resting that is about this deep letting go, surrender, putting everything down, prioritizing not doing anything. And when we can really surrender that doing mode, it can be very delicious. Is there any part of your body right now that's really enjoying this? Maybe your eyes are enjoying being away from the screen. Maybe your eyes are enjoying being closed. Maybe your hands again are contented to be still. wherever there is some sense of ease or even pleasure in your body, part of your body that feels somehow happy to be relaxing. See if you can rest your attention there. Enjoying simple pleasures, the simple pleasure of resting, of pausing, of stopping, the simple pleasure of moving. And noticing what feels good in our body, noticing what feels helpful, what feels like a caring thing to be doing with our body. It can be a good intention to thread through the week. If we're in service to ourselves, we tend to be in a much better place to be in service to others as well. And then similarly to earlier, you might just want to move your little finger first. Let the other fingers follow. Or open another part of your body first, maybe your eyes, maybe your lungs, by taking a deeper breath. So in some ways, coming out of relaxation is coming back to the world, to a more open interaction with the world. Relaxation, we withdraw, we go in, we go down in some way. And then coming out is opening, coming up, out, forwards. And again, if you really feel not ready, there's still a delicious resting going on and you've got time, then please do stay there for as long as you can and want to.